Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. So I dropped my load off in Romeoville, Illinois. I'm over here in the Hawkeye State, Iowa. Got a load to pick up in Des Moines tomorrow. And that's just going back to basically Chicagoland too. Not very far, but it pays pretty well. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things, but before we do that, today is, what's today? August 2nd. Yeah, August 2nd. A couple of interesting things in history today. On this day in 1943, PT-109, right? Patrol Torpedo Boat 109, captained by Lieutenant J.G., I believe at the time, John F. Kennedy. Was in the, I believe they were in the Solomon Islands in the Pacific. It was cut in half by a Japanese destroyer. The boat sunk. I don't know that the Japanese did it on purpose or if they just didn't know that the PT boat was there. But in any event, cut it in half. Kennedy is later awarded the Navy Cross, which is the second highest award for valor behind or below the Medal of Honor. He's awarded the Navy Cross for saving some of his crewmen and getting them to shore. One of the things that did happen to Kennedy, though, is he injured his back in the collision, and a lot of people don't know, but he wore a back brace to help him basically the rest of his life. He also had Addison's disease, for which he took high doses of adrenaline or adrenal. And Addison's disease is a disease that affects the adrenal glands. But yeah, he wore a back brace. Like when he was assassinated in Dallas in 1963, he was wearing a back brace, underneath his coat. Anyway, that happened in 1943. And on this day in 1992, Jackie Joyner-Kersee wins the Olympic heptathlon, and she won it 2 Olympics in a row. She was the first person to win the heptathlon in back-to-back Olympics, and that is one reason that some people consider her the greatest female athlete ever. And there have been a lot of incredible female athletes, but if you accept the premise that the Olympic decathlon, the winner of that is the best male athlete in the world, then I think we have to accept that Jackie is the greatest female athlete in the world. So anyway, there's that. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things. I mentioned the person who kind of like abandoned their truck, and I know there's videos from other YouTubers talking about their revenue and stuff like that, and I've had people comment about revenue, and also people and I'll get to this, the negative comments first. So the other day I commented on Jim C's channel, and I said, like, I can't even remember what the comment was, but then this person says, well, anybody who does lease purchase, and I think this is because Jim said he wasn't going to do lease purchase because he didn't want to own a truck while piling up miles on it with a trainee. So he leases for now. And this person was like, and I should have remembered their name, just call them out, but they're like, lease purchases for losers. Anybody that can't get, a loan or can't get financing, has got a problem. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting take. I mean, because, I always love the ad hominem attacks on people, because you don't have anything intelligent to say. But here's the other thing, and I did point this out to the commenter on Jim's channel. And by the way, Jim, I'm not trying to stir up any crap on your channel, but I just couldn't let it go. Lease purchases, or just going and borrowing money from a lender is all still financing, right? Like if you don't understand that, then I'm not sure you're destined for business greatness. But people do different things for different reasons, right? Like, there's a reason when you go to Baskin Robbins that they don't have, that every ice cream is not vanilla. Now, it would be stupid if it was, because they're called 31 flavors. But let's say that you go to Cold Stone. If you walked in there and you're like, hey, I'd like to get some, rum raisin ice cream, or I'd like to get some chocolate, and they're like, well, we have vanilla. And you're like, well, what about chocolate marshmallow? Yeah, we have vanilla. And you said, how about strawberry? Did I mention we have vanilla? You get the point, right? It's different things meet different people's needs at different times. And by the way, there are a lot of people that were not losers, so I guess maybe there were winners, that financed trucks that they paid an exorbitant amount of money for, because they were just like chasing the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and they're already out of business. So, I guess what I'm saying is, if you got something useful to add, make a comment. But just calling somebody a loser because they do a lease purchase it's just dumb. So I wanted to talk about like being negative, because a lot of people, and I'm kind of circling back to the woman who left the truck on the side of the road, because Richie Rich mentioned that she had been kind of in the hole, and I want to start at the beginning of this, right? There are a lot of people who come to Prime, and I've said this before, so this is nothing new, but sometimes people, I don't expect that somebody's going to go back, I don't know how many videos I've done, but I don't expect somebody's going to go back and watch every one of them from the start, although why wouldn't you? But I just want to reiterate this, I guess this is like a rerun almost of a previous video. But here's the deal with coming to Prime, or maybe even going to any company where you get your CDL, you do whatever it is, 25,000 miles, 30,000 miles, 50,000 miles, you do 28 days, you do 300 hours, whatever. Like, there's all these different metrics at different companies, and then you're like a trucker, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna sign this deal, right? This lease with a leasing company, and then I'm gonna sign this contract with a trucking company, and I'm just gonna go make money hand over fist, okay? So the first thing is that a lot of people get into these leases and these contracting agreements, and let's be honest, they don't read what they signed. They just don't. They don't know what it says, okay? But I'll excuse that, because lots of people, that's true in life, right? Nobody, look, if you got a cell phone, did you really read the contract? Of course not. I didn't, and I went to law school. I should know better, right? But I didn't. You know why? Because it's a cell phone, right? I'm like, whatever. I don't really care. It's a cell phone company. I'll just deal with it, or quit and move on to something else, and they can send me an invoice, and if I feel like paying it, I'll pay it. If not, I won't. That's just life in Terry's world. But these leases, right? People tend to hear the best oftentimes when they want to do something. You know, I bought a lot of cars over the years, and every single one of them was depreciating assets. And I've had cars that ran the gamut. Like, I've owned a Chevy Cavalier. I owned a 1984 Chevy Cavalier, okay? I also owned a 2003 Mercedes S430, okay? Kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, right? One car, the Cavalier, I don't even remember what it cost. I know that the S-Class was 70,000 plus when it was new. I actually sold that. I didn't buy that car. I took it as legal fees, and I ended up selling it to a friend of mine who played in the NFL. Because I actually wanted the cash, not the car. But my point is that, you know, I've done a lot of dumb things over the years with money, right? I think most of us have. But here's the thing. When you sign one of these leases, right, you have an opportunity to make pretty good money. And I've said this before, a lot of the people that come into this business, they don't have a business background. They've never run their own business. They've never worked on commission. They've never had to like kill what they ate. And so it's a different animal, right? Like, think about it. You know, I'm parked by a McDonald's, right? And and I'm totally not casting aspersions on anybody who's ever worked at McDonald's, because lots of people have, including, I think, Beyonce. But what I've said, and this is just an example, you get a person who is 27 years old, and the most they've ever done is be a shift manager at the local McDonald's, and they were making like $30,000 a year. They come, they get their CDL, and then they're immediately making, at Prime at least, $900 a week. Okay, I'm telling you right now, if they were making $30K a year as an assistant manager at McDonald's, $900 a week is significantly more than they were ever taking home for a weekly paycheck. Okay, it's significantly more, because $900 a week is like around 48 grand a year. Okay, so it would have been like them becoming like almost like, I don't know, the general manager or whatever. I know general managers make more than that, but you get my point, right? It would have been like a 50% plus pay increase. Okay, so that's just in training. And then, you know, they see that their trainer is like bringing home like $3,000 a week, $4,000 a week, right? And it's no different than the lottery. They've never ever made that much money. So it's really easy. You know, I use the word lottery, but it's not unlike these guys that come from some podunk town in you know, South Carolina. They play college football for a couple of years. Then next thing you know, at age 21, they're in the NFL, and people are just throwing money at them. And we often wonder, well, how is it that somebody like, you know, a Mike Tyson who made millions of dollars had to go into bankruptcy? Or how is it that these guys who we were just watching on our TVs like 8 years ago are like totally bankrupt and get arrested, you know, for like robbing a liquor store? Well, the answer is because they can't handle what they have. And that's true with a lot of people that come to lease trucks. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, I'm making a general observation. And here's where this gets really tough. People see the success, and they look at other drivers and they say, hey, that person doesn't seem that much smarter than me, that much, you know, more professional than me. They don't seem like they're a better driver than I am. And they're killing it, right? And, you know, maybe they're, you know, sometimes we inflate what's going on. And so what no one shares, and I mean, Success isn't going to share this, Prime probably isn't going to share this, But they're going to, the flip side of the coin, that flip side to that $4,000 week that your trainer had, or $5,000 week. I once had like an $8,100 week training, and I know there are I've heard some trainers having like $10,000 week, like net. Okay. The flip side to that is, for every dollar that somebody's taken in, they could have been $1 in the hole. Okay. Well, because whatever comes easy also goes easy. And what I mean by that is this. I certainly have had more successful weeks than I've had unsuccessful weeks since I've been at Prime. I went an entire calendar year without having a negative week. Okay. I had some low weeks, but not any negative weeks. But here's the thing. It only takes one little thing to not go right, and next thing you know, you're having a week where instead of making $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, there's a little negative sign in front of that number on the settlement. So instead of making $2,000, you're negative $4,400. Well, guess what? When you're negative $4,400, in order to just that just that 1 week, right? In order to dig out of that hole, right? It's time for some math, okay? I can tell you that it's not that hard to get into a hole like that, okay? Look at, and Jim sees a perfect example. He's hoping that he's not negative for a third week in a row, okay? And one of the things that guys who hang around for a while, gals who hang around for a while, is when they were making, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a week, they weren't spending that, right? They were, and I've said this before, like how my wages work, and I'm a W-2 employee of the LLC that leases this truck. How my wages work is I get the same amount every week, no matter how much money I bring in, right? I get the same amount. Now the beauty of that is, like last week, I think I only brought in $800. My pay is more than $800. Why? Because there's money in that account to cover my salary and my per diem. But what happens is this: people get in the hole for a week. Then whatever got them in the hole, even if it wasn't a bad decision, maybe it was just bad luck, right? Like, if you hit a deer, the deer is going to cost you $1,000 right off the bat. Okay, there's going to be $1,000 deductible. But then if your truck is down so it can get fixed, then that's going to be lost revenue. And it's really hard to go back to the deer and ask for that money. It's not going to happen. So that tenth of a second, or half of a second, where the deer runs in front of you and you clobber it and you do $5,000 worth of body damage to your truck, you've now cost yourself $1,000 deductible, right? Through no fault of your own, okay? And your truck's going to be down for 2 weeks, let's say. You are not, even if you had, let's say you hit the deer on a Wednesday or on a Thursday and you had all your trip sheets from the previous week, okay? Whatever you were going to get on Friday is going to be less. Sorry, I just saw these dogs going crazy out in the parking lot. Whatever you get is going to be negative $1,000. It's going to be $1,000 off of whatever you thought you were getting. Okay, and then the next week you're going to have basically zero revenue, but your truck payment's still going to be due, insurance is still going to be due, all your fixed costs are still going to be due. Okay, And you may have other costs just from sitting around. It's really easy to get into that situation and then start feeling bad about things and start feeling like, what am I working for? And I've heard people say this, and I'll call out Richie Rich, right? We're good, but Richie sometimes says, you don't want to work for no money, right? But here's the thing, right? You got to take the long-term approach. People that get in a hole, you can get in a hole very, very quickly, but it's tough to get out of that hole. But the only way to get out of it is by doing the same things you did on the weeks that you were killing it, right? If every week you're doing those things that would get you a $3,000, net profit, then you can dig out of that hole. It might take you 3 weeks, but you'll know you're making progress, right? It is demoralizing when 1 week is minus 4,400 and you work your butt off the next week and you're still minus 1,275 bucks. And then you work your butt off the next week and you get $53, right? But you got to look at that like, hey, it's 3 weeks in a row that I basically got paid nothing. I've worked for 3 weeks, but you weren't working for free. You were building, right? You were digging out, okay? Nothing comes easy, and you got to be willing. If you want to be successful, you got to pay the price to be successful. A lot of people don't want to pay a price, but one of my favorite speeches I've seen on TV, and I didn't watch it live, I watched it on YouTube, is Ashton Kutcher talking about hard work at the teen, TV awards or something. You could look it up though. But it was really a great talk, because here's a guy who, like, a lot of these younger folks look up to, but he's like, look, being successful looks a lot like hard work, and it's true. And so what I'm saying is, don't come into this business, don't come into the, just be a company driver where you don't have to worry about what I'm describing. But if you want to make the big bucks, right, then you got to be able to take some big risks, because it's a crapshoot, right? It's a crapshoot. I mean, you see Jim C, this knucklehead from Mercer, ran him over. You see Paul, the guy that I trained on my truck, this knucklehead from Werner, ran him over at truck stops, right? Like, that isn't even counting stupid crap that happens on the road, right? And Jim C had like the trifecta, or whatever you want to say. He had a deer, he hit a deer, then he had the guy from Mercer run him over, and then it's taken a while to get his truck back. But that's this business. If you can't stomach that, if you can't keep your head and dig out of that hole, and you just want to quit when things get a little bit hard, then you should just stay at McDonald's, right? Because you're not going to be killing it every week. You're not going to be happy every week. You're not going to be cashing a winning lottery ticket in every week. It doesn't happen that way. And it doesn't even happen that way for companies. Some companies have really great quarters, some don't, But, like, here's an example. I buy stock in different companies. I don't sell it just because they don't have a great quarter or they didn't do what the analysts think. And if you're in this for the long haul, pun intended, right, and you want this to be your career, you got to expect some down times, right? You got to expect some hard times. No one has a career and doesn't have some ups and downs, right? Because if this was easy, like I used to tell my guys in the Navy, if this was easy, everybody'd be doing it. It's not. It's not. The people that are out here week in and week out, making it work, are putting a lot of effort into it. Sometimes it is easy. Sometimes, you know, your fleet managers get you all these loads that pays like stupid money almost. Like, you know, they get you some load that it's 1,000 miles and it pays like $5,100, right? That's an easy way to make a living, right? But you got to take a steady strain. You can't spend everything you make. You got to have some reserves. You got to act like it's a job and not just a cash register that you're doing. So, if any of this hits home, that's okay, right? Because part of getting better is recognizing your mistakes and your weaknesses. And don't get me wrong, I've done so many stupid things with money. I was talking with somebody else that I trained today, and we were just going back and forth sharing stories about how we did stupid things with money, right? Nobody's immune to it. But just know that nobody's immune to, like, there's no secret sauce to getting out of a pickle when you get in one. You just got to work your way out. And like Ashton Kutcher says, success looks like a lot like hard work. And the guys that are like, that you think are successful out here, whoever that might be, I'm pretty sure they're working hard at it. You know, they're not getting down, they're just chugging along. And when they get run over a deer or somebody runs over their truck at a truck stop, they're just like, okay, I know what I got to do. I'm gonna dig myself out. So anyway, I don't mean to get down on anybody, but I want people to understand that there's no magic potion here. There's no secret sauce unless you call working hard and hanging in there. Hanging in there, you know. Don't quit when the chips are down. You know, that's how it pays off, you know. So anyway, hope everybody's doing well, and you know, you just got to look at things like they're going to get better. The market's going to turn a little bit, slowly but surely. I think it is. But we'll see. But you know, just work your plan your work, and everything will take care of itself. So talk to you soon. Bye.